your reason, knowing your why is it's just as important as showing up to practice and doing everything. And I think knowing your why is what's going to separate you from others. Because once you reach that point in your race where you're about to give up, and I literally think about it, like I'm thinking about the people who have poured into me, and I'm thinking I owe this to them.
Welcome back into a brand new episode of the Champion Standard podcast. I'm your host, Jay Bowles, and it's been a little while since the last episode, I know, and honestly, it feels really good to be back. I appreciate everyone who's stuck around and continues to show support of the show during that time. Taking a step away has given me some perspective. It has reminded me why I started the podcast in the first place, and why these conversations really matter. The Champion Standard podcast has never really been about, wins and losses, more about the standards athletes hold themselves to every single day, especially when no one's watching. And if you're new here, the podcast is all about the stories of college athletes, how their sport has shaped them, the challenges they faced, and the lessons they take with them beyond competition. These are real conversations about the journey, not just the highlights. So just to provide a little context about today's episode, about what you will hear, I will be joined by Marissa Gordon, a track athlete at Tulane University. And in this episode, we're going to talk about her journey as a track athlete, transitioning from someone who was not on the team in her freshman year to being on the team in her sophomore year, and how she went from training alone to competing on the team, the balance of athletics and academics, the importance of discipline, the mental aspects of racing, and also how her experiences have shaped her approach to competition and personal growth. We will also get into what it takes to stay disciplined and how to handle adversity and what it really looks like to keep showing up when things don't always go your way. So whether you're an athlete, a fan, or just, someone working towards your own goals, there's something in this conversation for you, for real. My hope is that it challenges you to think about your own standard and what it looks like to keep pushing forward even when progress isn't obvious. So without further ado, let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Marissa Gordon. Hello, welcome in. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing pretty good myself. I know I introduced to my guest briefly who you were in the intro, but I just wanted to give you some time to kind of introduce yourself, kind of explain a little bit of your background.
Well, my name is Marissa Gordon. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. I go to Tulane here. I run track. I run the 200, 400. I study engineering. That's a general overview of me.
And so just to provide some context, we're just coming out of our break from Christmas, winter break. So we had one meet before indoors, but now we're having the majority of the indoor season after this break. So kind of like right now before indoor really gets going, how are you feeling heading into this part of the season?
I think it's nice to experience the stress and everything of when you're actually racing. I just feel like there's some of those things you can't get at practice. I mean, especially the icebreaker meet and very meaningful, helping me get used to racing.
And for you, would you say there was the break? So how did it kind of feel having that one race and then kind of having to take a break from it and still having to train and do all the right things? But how'd you kind of approach that?
I have mixed feelings about it. I mean, it kind of sucks. I had all that adrenaline and all that momentum, and I was I just got my first race done. I'm ready. I want to get into another race tomorrow, but it's just no, the break. It's over the break. I use that momentum just to be well, I'm going to use all this energy to focus on the process, further develop my skills, and, give it my all.
For sure. And I just wanted to say that, your first race was very good. So I just wanted to say that from the beginning. But just so people know, your first year, you actually, your freshman year, you weren't on the track team. So kind of go through that process and how, you were training but weren't on the team, but now you got onto the team this year and are already very successful.
My freshman year, I was taking a lot of credit hours and balancing both 20 credit hours, 21 credit hours engineering, and also training on my own. I focused mostly on the weaknesses. I mean, my senior year of high school, I only ran for a month and a half, and then I got injured. So I never really trained for track per se. prior to joining the team. But it was a lot of discipline my freshman year. Like I'd wake up at 5:30 a.m., 6 a.m., go train before class, and about 2.5 hours every morning, every day. I only took one rest day, so I trained 6 days, 2.5 hours. I focused on weight because as a sprinter, muscle strength, explosiveness is very key. And when I was in high school, I was very skinny, didn't have strength, and although I was naturally fast, like I still needed the muscle. So I focused a lot on my weaknesses, my endurance. I trained that, and I mean it was really hard doing that by myself, but I think it was worth it.
For sure. And you say, you're getting up at, at very early hours in the morning every day, training by yourself. I know just from having trained by myself over just the breaks at different times that it's very hard to. Uh, there's a lot of hard things that you have to get down that you have to worry about with when you're training with other people, teammates, coaches, all that kind of stuff. So, would you say notice the difference between your training by yourself versus training with your teammates or other people for track?
I think it's easier to train with other people than it is to train by yourself, and I think that's just like in general. When I was training by myself, it's nothing really. I mean, I don't listen to music or anything when I was training. You need to be alone with the pain. You need to be able to like callous your mind. That's what you go into with the race. Like, it's not going to be, I mean, you have the noise of like the people around you. I try to imitate like the worst case scenario every single time I train. So it's like no motivation, none of that, because that's how you grow. Like putting yourself in an uncomfortable position and just being there, being present in it, and just allowing yourself to feel it. Training with other people is a lot easier. Um, it's like you have the noise, you have a little bit more adrenaline, you have companionship, especially if they're your teammates. It's really nice to train with your teammates. And I got to experience that today, like the day and night difference from training on my own for this past week versus training with my teammates. It's a lot easier.
Okay, moving on to a slightly different type of question. I just want to ask you kind of where you think track is in your life right now. Like, where would you rank it in terms of importance? Obviously, um, being a student athlete, it's up there. But would you say right now, like track or school is more important to you?
That's a hard question. I think honestly, I'm like always at odds with what is my biggest priority, but I would say that I think track is my number one priority just because um the time and scale that you're able to peak in track and your age is not indefinite, but I mean there's definitely a prime when it comes to like academia, your quickness of learning, but that doesn't compare to like athletic ability. The timeline to develop yourself enough to be like the pro standard is a lot more restricted than it is to get an engineering degree.
That's interesting. I didn't think about it like that because you obviously your body has a physical limit, but in terms of like mentally and academically, that could probably be stretched out farther, I would assume. And obviously, um, through different professors and all that kind of stuff, you can see people teaching obviously much later into their careers than they are running track or doing any other sport. So I think yeah, that point makes a lot of sense. And would you say like obviously like being on the team versus not being on the team, would you say like that's shifted at all? Like that priority list has shifted in any way? Like even though you were training, I know, but would you say like now that it's official and like everything's happening for real, like that's kind of changed since when you first got on campus?
Absolutely. The training time and just like the schedule that we have is a lot more rigid than the one I initially had. Like I could train at 6 a.m. and the rest of the day is me studying work. Um, Last semester, wake up at 5 and then run straight to practice and then class all the way up to the point, then wait. And the duration and the intensity of the workouts are a lot longer and harder. And the balance between them, it's a lot more of a juggle, I would say, than it was for me previously.
For sure. And now that you've had like some time like in between your freshman year and your sophomore year, obviously you had a break in there, but in terms of competing, how do you kind of look back on last year and how that kind of set you up for this year? Would you say it was helpful and beneficial, or would you say it would have been better if you were maybe training on the team last year?
That's a really good question. I actually think about this a lot. I'm not sure because prior to training on my own, like training on my own really helped me develop discipline and grit. And those are things I liked going into this year already having because I think that's just like having those things and that mental capability to get through a tough workout, having the mental capability to be like, well, regardless of how I feel, I'm gonna do it. It's gonna get done. Like if I just started training off the rip, I don't know if I would have had that same discipline, the same grit. Or like my mind, like I was weak mentally before I started training on my own. So honestly, I say training on my own like was a lot beneficial than if I just started training on the team. I think the chip on my shoulder that I had, I mean, having a chip on my shoulder that I developed my freshman year, and I was like, I want this. Like, I'm gonna take my spot on the team, or I'm gonna earn my spot, regardless of if I'm training on my own. If I have all the facilities that the other people have, like I can do it without them.
For sure, and you kind of we're leading into this, but at that time or throughout that whole year, you obviously didn't see that as like a temporary. You obviously saw that as like a temporary time. Like you felt like you were going to be on the team at some point. Like that was the ultimate goal, correct?
Hmm.
So like in terms of the whole process of now being officially on the team and all that kind of stuff now that you didn't realize before has like been the hardest part that you didn't really realize.
I would say something I really struggled with after joining the team is that for me, like progress isn't always linear. And like when you're first getting started with something, like the progress is like it's just you just peak and then you don't really stop peaking. And I was having that my entire freshman year because it's like I was weak. I didn't have any muscle, not the mass or anything. And I was just getting started. Like I was out of shape. So every day, every week, I was maxing, I was getting better. But joining the team and balancing school and everything and a bunch of other stressors, like eventually your progress it's not linear. You go backwards. And I remember when I didn't finish my first workout and I had a complete meltdown. So it's like it's never happened. So I think that's one of the toughest things I had to learn. It definitely makes you stronger. Having that adversity, facing adversity and using it to become stronger and to grow from that rather than letting it hold you down or um making you feel bad about yourself.
Yeah, that's a big part of obviously anything you do. It's a big lesson that everyone learns at some point. In terms of your situation, obviously that was something that took some getting used to, and I think that was I don't want to speak for you, but at least from the outside, seems like it was definitely worth it, and I think it definitely allowed you to have the success that you're having at this point. So um, I think that's really interesting. Back to you, and then just back to kind of you talked about always wanting to get onto the team, and like you had that chip on your shoulder. Do you think that was more like about proving something to someone, or that was like just like something you believed was going to happen, like always, and you already believed it and knew it was going to happen?
Um it was more like I made a promise to myself and I think the strongest form of self love is discipline and doing the stuff that you need to do for yourself and I think that's the strongest form of self love. And I know that getting on this team was something that I wanted to do. I have a passion, a love for track and field and I have reasons and people who have passed and I carry their legacies through track and field. So a chip on my shoulder came from the fact that I don't have half the training life or even a third or a fourth of anybody like that I run with. Like it's not even close. And it's just like running with people who have run it for so long typically they just where initially they think like, oh, like you just didn't start it, like your form is bad. I had bad form and I was still running fast. It's just like I just wanted to prove that regardless of your training life, if you do the hard work, if you're willing to outwork, if you're willing to suffer more than everybody else, you will prevail. And I think hard work beats talent every time.
Spitting bars right there. I think that's really valuable. I think, I mean, it's obviously, a well known phrase or lesson, however you want to describe it. But I think, you know, when it manifests itself in reality, I think that's actually really powerful. You explaining that, I think, is and how it impacted you and like what you actually went through. I think that's really powerful, and I think as you move on, you that will only help you. So
Mhm.
uh,
I was I was gonna say one quote that I think about all the time is by Mike Tyson, and he says it's only delusional until it becomes reality. So like I'm telling you, I'm gonna run this time. I'm telling you, no, I can go D1 in 1 year. I can go D1 training in 2 months, and people are gonna look at you like you're crazy like, until it happens. It's only delusional until you make it your reality. But you have to be willing to believe yourself. You have to believe that you're already that champion. You have to become him. You have to believe that you are become that. So that's just the mentality I had going into it. Like I was like, no, I'm gonna be D1. I have what it takes.
and yeah, no, I think that obviously speaks to the progress and obviously the very rapid progress that you've made. I think that's a testament to your mentality. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
that delusional mindset, I think, is required for anyone to be successful, really, at anything. To know that they think that they're the best, or they think they can do this because they maybe it may not look like that to other people, but at the end of the day, if you don't believe it's going to happen, it never will happen. So I
Mm-hmm.
think. Yeah, that's really powerful quotes. I think that's really helpful, and I think anyone really could use that as fuel or as a good resource to kind of get to where they're going if they feel stuck or whatever. And I think that's really helpful. So I really appreciate you sharing that. Um, and back to like the break that we're on, this specific one over, the Christmas holiday. What would you say that has had on, like, obviously, you said motivation, touched
Mm-hmm.
on motivation briefly. Like, how does that test like your discipline and motivation? Like, what is different with that compared to obviously when everything's structured and like, you have schedule and everything like that?
Mm-hmm. I would say when you're structured and you have like our coach in our corner telling us like, hey, you need to be here, like she'll text you if you're later. But obviously when you're training on your own, you don't have that person like who's gonna put their hand on your shoulder and say, hey, you need to get up and go train. Like you need to be that person. When that alarm clock goes off, like you need to tell yourself, regardless of how you feel, whether you're tired, no. I told myself I was gonna train today. And like I said, I think discipline is the number one sport in self-love. You're gonna get up and you're gonna do that because you owe it to your future self. So I would say training over the break, it just helps to like I felt like I was getting closer to rekindling like the dog in me, the grit, like going to that hard place when you don't have motivation. It's really easy to stay in bed, but it's harder to tell yourself to get up, go train, and train like it's any other day in practice, you know?
Yeah, that's yeah, obviously takes a lot of discipline. And what would you say, like, um obviously everything you said up to this point speaks to why you're doing it, but I think my question is right now is like, how do you I guess, like, how do you know that you're progressing when nobody's watching? Because obviously, coaches play a big role, other teammates play a big role, in critiquing, coaching, seeing different things. Like, how do you, I guess, as someone that's relatively new, like, how do you know that you're still progressing when, no one's watching or you're not able to receive that same type of feedback?
I think that's a really good question, especially for the nature track and like progression is usually dictated by a time or just like a few milliseconds or seconds that you're running on the track. But I think for me, what's really big for me is just like the mental aspect, the mental training and the mentality and being able to maintain that. Because I think like how people think like, oh, like mentality is something you have, you get it in a day. It's like, it's something that you're constantly fighting for. Like you have to constantly tell yourself and you're going to face when you're training and things get hard, you need to be able to persevere and maintain that mentality. Um, so I would say that we okay forgot this.
No, no, no. I was just saying, like, basically, when no one's watching, like how
Uh,
do you know like that you're progressing and you're still doing like the right things? Like obviously you're doing the work and stuff like that,
mhm,
but
mhm.
like as someone that's relatively new to to track and everything, I was asking like, is it kind of hard to know if you're doing what you're not supposed to be doing the workouts and stuff, but like technique is right and all that kind of stuff? Like how do you know that you're still like trending on the right path when no one's watching? Is essentially what I was getting at.
Oh, well, I like to record myself when I'm training to see what it looks like on the outside if they're talking about like technique and form. But um, I think the progression on my own, I really focus on the mental aspect and just making sure that I'm doing everything properly. I'm not putting music on to distract myself or anything. I'm not skipping parts of the workout or warm up, even if I don't want to do it, you know.
So you talked about your mindset and kind of your mentality. What would you say right now is kind of your mindset going into the indoor season right now?
Um, I'm really just trying to improve uh the fear associated with getting out as hard as you can, especially in the 400. So I would say my mindset is, or the part of my mindset that I'm trying to fix is like having confidence in myself that like I won't burn out or something bad's gonna happen if I get out all the way, or just that fear of associated with the pain of having to persevere if you do go out or get out as hard as you can.
I know you mentioned that at the beginning that you run the primarily the 200 to 400. So just like walk us through that. Like what is like your approach when it comes to a 400? Because I know for a lot of people it can vary. So what's kind of
Mhm.
how do you approach it?
For me, I try to run my 400 mentally. I go into it as a 300. And it's like a 300, I'm sprinting all out. And for the last 100 meters, just holding on to that momentum. Every time I reach the 300-meter mark, I tell myself, like, this is the part where you have to do what can't be taught. Like, your coach can't teach you this part of the race. It's the part where you push past your limits. It's where you persevere. It's when you tell your flesh that it has no authority over you. And you just allow yourself to push through that pain. Or it's like, the pain is almost like invigorating. It's almost like I'm earning this. Like, I'm
Hmm.
growing from this pain. So that's how I go into my 400. It's not the easiest mindset to have or maintain. And studying, like you definitely need to prepare yourself mentally a lot before you go into it with that mentality. But every time I step on that line, I tell my coaches, I told my trainers, like I have no self-preservation at all. Like I step on that line, I'm there to do one task, and that's to run as fast as I possibly can. And whatever those consequences that follow, I'll deal with them. But I know I'm willing to give all myself on the track. I'm willing to suffer, and there's no lengths or pain that would stop me.
That's yeah, wow, it's a mentality I sure don't have running when I run, but uh but I that makes sense, I think, with that. With the races you run for sure. That definitely, I mean, like you're talking about 400. I mean, obviously it's a sprint, so you obviously have to sprint much longer than 100 or 200. So yeah, I could see why. I mean, no, I can speak from limited experience, not a ton of experience, but at least some experience. I actually know what that feels like. But obviously, you know it on a much higher level and a much more intense level. So I would defer to you on that. But just like going like past just the 400, like in a practice, like when you're fighting fatigue or lactic acid or whatever it is, like what do you have anything you say to yourself, or like anything like any, I don't know, not cues but like any mantras that just stick in your head that you're like, okay, we got to do this to get to where we want to go?
I think there's a few things that I repeat to myself, and one of the main ones I say to myself is like, I'm telling my body it has no authority over my mind. So it's like your body is going to be the first thing. It's going to try to shut down. Like in the 400-meter sprint, those last 100 meters, your body is doing everything it can to make you slow down so that it conserves its energy. And I tell my body, no, like my mind has the power and I'm going to keep going. And it's really just like a fight against your body. And I don't think there's like a 200 sprint, it kind of happens towards like the last 30 meters. Your body starts to pull back on you, but I don't think it happens like it happens in the 400.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing I say to myself, um, is to be hollow, is to be full of potential. So just allowing yourself to experience that pain, just to become like a vessel to the training or an instrument to the, just the process in general. To allow yourself to, kind of put your emotions aside and just do the task, regardless of how you feel. If you're scared, go into it scared. If you're sad, mad, or angry, like just go into it with that and just allow yourself to experience it.
Yeah, that's real. I think I don't want to speak for other people, but at least from information that I've been told and people that I've talked to, I think that can be a struggle for people just in terms of like kind of embracing how they're feeling at the time and kind of not trying to act like it's not there, that you're not feeling a certain way or whatever it is, but just like going through that, like pushing through that, because I think obviously I mean, any track athlete really has to deal with it. Any runner, even there's probably other sports I'm sure as well that have to deal with it. Probably
Mhm.
swimming as well. That have to deal with fighting through the lactic acid and having to kind of push through the emotions they're feeling, not eliminate the emotions they're feeling, but kind of push through it and kind of embrace that. And I think that's very, very crucial and very important to not kind of quote unquote letting down any rep. I mean, I think that's important because that's where you make the most progress is
Mhm.
you know those last reps when it doesn't feel like your body's all there, your mind's all there, whatever it is. I think that's where you see the real seconds get dropped, the real tenths of a second get dropped. That's where you see the real progress. So I think that's another good point that I think that you brought up, and um, just just kind of in practice or anything, do you view yourself as someone like I need to like help other people see this as important and they need to also embrace like kind of how I approach it, like pushing through your emotions, and like do you share that with people, or is it kind of just like you're feeling whatever it is you're feeling and you kind of just keep it to yourself but kind of just like push through it?
I would say I definitely talked to other people about it. When I was back in Maryland training for the first 2 weeks, and I was training with high schoolers, and I remember we were doing a really tough workout. It was ice, it was cold, there was snow, and one of the high school students, he tells me, he's like, he's about to quit the workout. He's like, no, I can't do this. And I was like, it's not about how you run when you're motivated or when you have the motivation to do it. It's how you run when you're tired. It's how you run when you're at this level. And I was like, I was telling him, like, when I hit a certain point of a rep, I say to myself, and when I feel my body start to shut down, I'm like, this is it. This is the part where most people give up, but this is where I start pushing harder. Like, allowing yourself to feel invigorated from the pain. Like, that's how you grow. Like, you don't grow from being in that comfortable position. And whenever I see somebody who's about to like quit, I tell them, like, this is it. Like, this is the moment. This is what you're training for. You're not training to feel comfortable. And I think the most fulfilling workouts are the ones where you reach that point and you persevere from it. And that's how you grow.
That's true. Yeah, I can't disagree with any of that. I mean, obviously, you know what you're talking about and from experience. Obviously, it's helped you get to where you want to go. So I think you know being able to share that with other people, it's important. That's how you help those around you grow, and that's whether it's teammates or whoever it is. I think that's ultimately. I don't want to say it's just as important as you pushing through it, but it's definitely important and something that needs to be done because if someone's not going to change their mentality or change their perspective on something if they don't have any reason to, like if someone's gonna kind of take a different mentality, take a different mindset, I think their teammates
Mhm.
and those closest to them can help them shift that perspective, and that can really, as you've demonstrated clearly, can really lead to a lot of progress. So
I was gonna say, like, I feel like I can be the catalyst to somebody's change. But again, like those last 100 meters of the 400, you have to do something that can't be taught. It's only something you yourself can teach yourself to do. and something you have to want and what you're gonna have to fight for, and you have to be willing to suffer and do what it takes. Like, it sucks. I'm not gonna be like, I love the pain so much. Like, when I have lactic acid and I feel like my legs are locking up, I'm not like, oh, I love this every single day. I'm like, I think to myself, and I'm like, I earned that pain and it helped me grow. But in the moment, of course, I'm like, this sucks. But I also know I'll do anything to finish the workout. I'll do anything to persevere through it.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think obviously I don't think there's much I can add in terms of the value that has for anyone or for any athlete. I think that's you've laid it out perfectly, and just want to kind of go back to stuff in your journey so far, kind of where you think you're going. I just want to ask, like, for this upcoming, indoor outdoor season, however you want to answer it, but like, what are you hoping, like, that you get out of the season? Like, not just in terms of results and whatever, like those will come with time, but like, what do you think? Like, what does success feel like to you?
This upcoming indoor season, I never ran indoor before, so to me, success would be getting more comfortable with those curves, those hard turns. And it's also like a different mental aspect, at least for me personally, running the 400 and having to do 2 laps rather than one. And it's like there's almost like, sometimes I feel like I have a mental block where I'm like, oh, it's not 1 lap, like this is 2 laps. And it feels like almost more tumultuous and harder to do. And I just want to get over those mental leaps and just reassure myself. Like, after I did my 300 in my first meet, I was like, I am who I think I am. I just need to believe it. And I could have gotten even further if I felt how I felt after my race with my like my trust in my abilities. I would say just getting over those mental barriers and those leaps in indoor, and for outdoor, it should be a little bit like not easier, but just because I'm used to training outdoor, we train on an outdoor track
Mm-hmm.
and everything. Um, just focusing on, again, trusting myself to get out as hard as I can, and knowing and trusting in myself, and knowing I won't allow myself to break down. I won't allow my body to have authority over my mind.
Yeah, and I think just following up on that, would you say, um, the indoor versus outdoor debate, I think, is a very, very highly debated topic. On previous episodes of my podcast, I've had, plenty of guests answer the question indoor, outdoor, where they mostly say outdoor. They don't think some will say indoor is not real or whatever. Which obviously it is real, but I think what is your perspective on it? Like, do you think is it like it transfers, like everything you do transfers from indoor to outdoor? You kind of have to like relearn, like rewire how you would approach a race. Like, obviously technically it's different with the 2 laps versus one, but like, does it feel different, like on your body? Like, what would you say?
On my body, I would say for indoors, mostly adjustment, running on those tight curves and like leaning, being comfortable with accelerating. And again, here's where the trust aspect comes in yourself, being able to trust yourself to get out at your 100% and also not worry about stepping out your curve or flying off or, anything that could happen. Indoor, I would say it's not necessarily indicative of your true potential. And I think that's why a lot of people do better outdoor, because it's just like, for outdoor, you don't have to worry about those tight curves and whether it's banked. And there's just a lot more, like, it's not like homogeneous, at least for indoor. Like,
Mm-hmm.
one day you're running on a banked curve, the next day you're running on a flat curve. And there's so many different types of indoor tracks that it doesn't really make it, like, it's not always as standard as an outdoor track. Because an outdoor track, it's a 400-meter track always, and it might have another lane, but that's really the difference in outdoor.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, I mean, like, if you think about it, like, there's not, I mean, I would have to do some research on this, but I don't feel like there's a lot of other sports that have to go from, one season to another where the surface is totally different. Like, that's just I'm sure for a lot of people that's hard to comprehend. Like you gotta,
Hmm.
like you're not competing on the same servers year round. Like you have to change. Like that's just thinking about that, thinking about other sports is like interesting. Um, but yeah, so I would say like, what would you say right now has been like your biggest, like what you have improved at most over the past however many months it's been, but whatever, since you've officially been, doing track.
I would say, and I think it's not even close. I think my biggest improvement has been strength training. When I first got in here, when I first started training at Tulane, I couldn't even hold the bar to the barbell bar. I couldn't clean it. I couldn't RDO. I couldn't do anything with the bar. And it took me a very long time to trust myself to even finish the movements without the bar, like using just a regular pull. And I was like, no, I don't have it. The technique, it really hurt like my confidence and my trust in myself. But now I can clean my body weight, and that's insane. Like in 4 months now I can lift my body weight. So I think my strength training has been my greatest improvement so far in my career. I mean, also I just feel like I've become more consistent. Like I'm really good at running one good time and then just dying, and that's it. Like I have nothing left. But I've started to become more consistent and being able to have more consistent reps. So I think those two things have been my best improvements.
Yeah, I mean, consistency and strength and track is if you don't have those, kind of, I don't want to say you're screwed, but it's gonna be hard for you to compete at high level. Yeah, so kind of moving into our last section of the podcast, I want to do like this little rapid fire questions I ask all my guests at the end of the podcast. So just be like, short answer, not, you don't have to answer it like in a full essay or paragraph form, whatever, just a couple words, whatever, however you feel you want to answer it. So just in terms, this is going to be kind of based on where we're at right now. So one word to describe the break.
Um, I would say difficult.
Difficult. Okay. I know you touched on music briefly, but favorite song, or if you listen to a warm up song, whatever you listen to, what is that favorite song right now?
Um, Pardon Me by Joey Badass.
Okay. What event feels most you?
I think the 400, but I feel like my 200, I feel 100% confident running it. But I think the 400 is good because it's uncomfortable.
Hmm. And then one thing you're proud of heading into, well, we've already started, but heading back into the season.
I would say just reflecting back, it's the new year. Last year, I dropped my times by like 8 seconds for the 400, and for my 200, like 3, 4 seconds since my senior year. So I think that's my going into the season. I'm very proud of myself and where I've come from, because it's like being surrounded by other people. Like it's like I did this in an eighth of the time that you had.
All right, and that will do it for our rapid fire question section. Last question I just want to ask. Well, actually, there's two questions. Uh, is the first one is like, why to you, like why does the story matter, like before the results show up? Like why is that so important to kind of understand and realize how your story and your develop kind of matters even more before the results?
The story is what's going to get you through those tough times. And when you're wanting to quit, because eventually you're going to think to yourself, is this what I really want? And you'll always have that to fall back on. And I think knowing your reason, knowing your why it's just as important as showing up to practice and doing everything. Um, and I think knowing your why is what's going to separate you from others. Because once you reach that point in your race, you're about to give up. And I literally think about it. Like I'm thinking about the people who have poured into me, and I'm thinking I owe this to them. This is the least I can do.
And last thing, if you want to shout out any of your social media channels, what are those, right?
My Instagram is with two A's underscore Gordon with two N's. And I would love to give a shout out to my coaches, Coach Agna, Coach T, Coach Carter. They really helped me persevere. And of course, Coach Haiti. I couldn't have done it without them. And especially thanks to Coach Agna for giving me a chance because I just showed up one day and I was like, look, I know I don't have the official times. She gave me a chance, welcomed me with open arms, and gave me the platform to prove myself. And she never doubted me ever.
I really appreciate having such an insightful, open conversation with you. It was really great to have you on the podcast, and looking forward to seeing how you progress this season, and kind of, because I know you'll be very successful, and I think yeah, you'll prove to everyone why you should be here and why you should, as you said, be a Division I track and field athlete. So with that, I just want to say thank you for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.